The chopper bucked violently, tossing Ibrahim Traore against the padded leather of his seat. Beside him, the Burkina Faso Minister of Defense, Boubacar Sangare, gripped his armrest, knuckles white. Outside, the world had dissolved into a swirling ochre chaos. "What's happening?" Traore barked over the roar of the engines and the shriek of the wind. The pilot's voice, strained, crackled through the intercom. "Sir, we've been caught in a massive sandstorm. Visibility is 0. We're losing control." Traore exchanged a grim look with Sangare. They were en route to Niamey, the capital of Niger, for a crucial strategy meeting with Colonel Assimi Goïta of Mali and General Abdourahmane Tiani of Niger. The agenda was simple: solidify their alliance against the growing threats of terrorism and economic instability in the Sahel. Now it seemed nature itself was conspiring against them. The helicopter lurched again, this time more violently. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. The pilot fought to regain control, but it was a losing battle. "Brace for impact," he yelled. The world turned upside down. Then, darkness. Ibrahim Traore woke to the smell of fuel and burning metal. His head throbbed, and his body ached. He was pinned beneath a section of the wreckage. Groaning, he managed to free himself and stumble out of the mangled remains of the helicopter. Around him, the storm still raged, though with less intensity. The air was thick with dust and the acrid tang of smoke. Sangare lay nearby, unconscious but breathing. Traore checked the other passengers. 2 aides, both alive but injured, and the pilot, miraculously unscathed. As the reality of their situation sunk in, a cold dread washed over Traore. They were stranded, deep within unfamiliar territory. "Where are we?" Traore asked the pilot, his voice hoarse. The pilot consulted his instruments, his face grim. "Sir, based on the last coordinates, we've crossed the border. We're in Nigeria." Nigeria. Traore's heart sank. While Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger had formed a tight-knit alliance, Nigeria, under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, had been openly critical of their military coups and their defiance of ECOWAS sanctions. They were on opposite sides of a complex geopolitical chessboard. Suddenly, a new and far more immediate threat loomed. The pilot pointed to the north. "Look!" Emerging from the swirling dust were figures on motorcycles, their faces hidden behind turbans and scarves. They carried AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenade launchers. It was clear who they were. ISWAP, the Islamic State West Africa province, an al-Qaeda affiliate known for their brutality and their control over vast swathes of territory in the region. "We need to move now," Traore barked, adrenaline coursing through his veins. General Abdourahmane Tiani paced anxiously in his office in Niamey. The news of Traore's missing helicopter had reached him an hour ago, and the uncertainty was gnawing at him. He picked up the phone and dialed President Tinubu's number in Abuja. Tinubu answered on the 3rd ring. "President Tiani, what can I do for you?" Tiani cut to the chase. "President Tinubu, Ibrahim Traore's helicopter has gone down. We believe it crashed inside your territory near the border. Intelligence suggests it's in an area controlled by ISWAP." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. Tinubu, despite his reservations about the Sahelian leaders, understood the gravity of the situation. If ISWAP gets their hands on Traore, it will destabilize the entire region, he said grimly. "I'll mobilize our forces immediately. We'll do everything we can to find them." Usman, the ISWAP commander, surveyed the wreckage of the helicopter with a predatory gleam in his eyes. This was an unexpected bounty, a golden opportunity. Capturing Traore and his entourage would give them leverage they could only dream of. They could demand a massive ransom, the release of their imprisoned comrades, and most importantly, a safe passage out of the area where the Nigerian army was tightening its noose around them. Kabiru, Usman said to one of his lieutenants, "Secure the area. Find the survivors. Bring them to me alive." Kabiru nodded and barked orders to his men. They fanned out, scouring the wreckage and the surrounding area. Traore and his men, realizing they were hopelessly outgunned, had taken cover behind a rocky outcrop. They knew their chances of survival were slim. "Sir," the pilot said, his voice trembling, "we need to try and contact someone. Anyone." Traore pulled out his satellite phone and tried to get a signal. After several agonizing minutes, he finally got a weak connection. He dialed Tiani's number. "Abdurrahman, we've crashed," Traore said urgently. "We're in Nigerian territory near the border. ISWAP is here. We need help." The line crackled and went dead. Traore cursed under his breath. Kabiru and his men were closing in. Traore knew they were running out of time. He looked at his men, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. "We fight," he said, his voice firm. "We fight to survive." Meanwhile, a Nigerian army task force, led by Colonel Adebayo, was racing towards the crash site. Adebayo knew the stakes were high. He had received direct orders from President Tinubu: rescue Traore and his men at all costs. As the Nigerian soldiers sped through the dusty terrain, Adebayo couldn't help but reflect on the irony of the situation. Just weeks ago, Nigeria and Burkina Faso were at loggerheads. Now they were fighting on the same side, united against a common enemy. The battle was short and brutal. Traore and his men fought with the desperation of cornered animals, but they were no match for the heavily armed ISWAP fighters. Just as Kabiru was about to capture Traore, the Nigerian army arrived, unleashing a barrage of gunfire. The ISWAP fighters, caught by surprise, scattered and fled. Kabiru was cut down in a hail of bullets. Usman, watching from a distance, cursed his bad luck. He knew this was a major setback, but he was not ready to give up yet. Colonel Adebayo reached Traore, who was wounded but alive. "Are you Ibrahim Traore?" he asked. Traore nodded, his eyes filled with relief. "Yes, I am." "You're safe now," Adebayo said. "We're here to take you home." As Traore was being airlifted to safety, he looked down at the Nigerian soldiers on the ground, their faces grim but determined. He realized that despite their political differences, they were all brothers, bound by a shared commitment to peace and security in the region. In Niamey, General Tiani received the news of Traore's rescue with a profound sense of relief. He immediately called President Tinubu to express his gratitude. "President Tinubu," Tiani said, "I owe you a debt I can never repay. You saved my brother's life." Tinubu's voice was warm and reassuring. "We did what any responsible neighbor would do, General. We are all in this together. The fight against terrorism requires unity, regardless of our political differences." The sandstorm had passed, leaving behind a trail of destruction and a profound lesson. In the face of a common threat, old rivalries and disagreements could be set aside. The survival of the Sahel depended on it.